Catherine de' Medici had a tough time conceiving children with her husband, who was to become Henry II of France. You may know about Catherine de' Medici from the 2022 Starz historical drama series named The Serpent Queen, or from history as not only the Serpent Queen, but the Dark Queen, the Black Queen, and even the Witch Queen. We'll begin this story when a young Catherine de' Medici had been wed to Henry, the future King of France, for over 5 years. Despite the fact that the husband and wife were both young and healthy, Catherine was unable to fulfill her most important responsibility, producing an heir to the throne. Gossip around court revolved around Catherine's not-so-pleasant appearance, meaning that Henry found her unappealing, and the fact that Catherine had a rival for Henry's affections. Her name was Diane de Poitiers, and Henry was madly in love with her. He had been since he was a young child, and Diane, who was serving as a lady-in-waiting to his grandmother, kissed him tenderly on the cheek as he was being sent off to Spain as a diplomatic hostage. When Henry's father, King Francis I of France, found himself a prisoner in Spain during a battle there, he was captured and imprisoned by his enemies. Desperate to be free and return to France, Francis made a truly heartless deal with his captors and negotiated his own release in return for his 2 sons, Henry and Henry's older brother. Henry was only 7 years old when Diane gave him that motherly kiss, which Henry never forgot, so much so that Diane became in Henry's mind both a replacement for the mother he lost at age 5 and a lover who he yearned for throughout his years of captivity in Spain. When Henry was released from captivity a few years later as a young teenager, he returned to court and was married to Catherine soon after. And not long after that, he and Diane de Poitiers became lovers, even as she was a good 20 years older than the teen. After a time, rumors began to spread throughout the French court that Catherine was incapable of conceiving. Some said that their love affair kept Catherine from Henry's bed, but that is not really why the royal couple could not conceive. There was talk of divorce, both because of Catherine's apparent infertility and because her opulent dowry had never been completely paid for. It seems that when Catherine's marriage had been arranged by her Medici uncle, Pope Clement VII, as a means to secure the authority of the Catholic Church in France, the Pope had promised an exorbitant amount of money and gold to be paid in installments. But the Pope died in Rome a year after the wedding, and the payments to Catherine's dowry came to a halt. Then there was the presumed bastard child of Henry's. Back in 1537, during the Italian Wars in which Henry took part at the urging of his father, Henry took up lodging with an Italian squire named Gian Antonio Ducci. While there, Henry was seduced by Gian Antonio's sister Filippa, and she became his mistress. Word got out that Filippa was pregnant and that Henry was the father, all of which played well in Henry's favor. Filippa gave birth to a girl who was named after Henry's mistress, Diane, and Filippa benefited with a handsome sum paid by King Francis I. The young child became known as Diane de France and was brought to the French court to be raised by none other than Diane de Poitiers. In the eyes of the court and the court gossips, this earlier escapade of Henry's proved that Henry was not sterile, and therefore it must be that Catherine was the one at fault. So it was that Catherine found herself in a dangerous political position. A rival noble family called the Guise were plotting to replace her with a queen of their own on the basis that she was deemed infertile. Catherine had to act fast, so she strategically put aside her pride and launched a calculated preemptive strike. The young Catherine poised hopelessly at Henry's father's feet, King Francis I, proclaiming that she adored Henry more than anything and only desired for him to have a bride who could bear him an heir. All she wanted, Catherine claimed, was that she be allowed to remain in France so that she may kindly serve her beloved's new spouse. Catherine was betting on the king's inability to stand the sight of a young lady in tears. Francis was moved to tears himself and proclaimed that it was God's will that Catherine was the wife of his son and that the issue of replacing her with anyone else was settled. Once she was secure again in her position at court, Catherine knew she had to attack this problem of her infertility from every and any direction that she could think of. She set out to pursue multiple interventions, including surrounding herself with doctors, astrologers, magicians, alchemists, and seers. She made use of tarot cards and charms and resorted to medieval remedies. She drank the urine of pregnant animals, consumed the powdered sexual organs of boars and cats, and mixed many different herbs in her food and wine. Another remedy was to consume the left hind paw of a weasel mixed with vinegar. Someone, God knows who, went so far as to tell her that during coitus she must wear over her source of life organ a soft, warm, extremely smelly poultice made of ground stag antlers and cow dung. It seems incredible that Henry would want to get close enough to even attempt conceiving offspring, but they both were required to make a concerted effort to get the job done. Eventually, Catherine had to turn to other measures, which involved Henry's mistress, Diane de Poitiers. The story goes that Catherine had a hole made into the floor above Diane's chambers so that she could peek through in an effort to see if there was something that she was missing about how to make a baby. It is also said that Catherine went so far as to demean herself and stoop to asking Diane for conjugal advice. At her wit's end, Catherine had a doctor by the name of Jean Fernel do a thorough physical examination on both her and Henry. According to the anatomy of their individual reproductive organs, the doctor came up with a solution. Because the specifics of the doctor's examination and his subsequent advice is not recorded in the annals of history, we cannot be entirely sure of what was the problem. But I did find an article on the web that has a suggestion or two as to what may have been going on with the young royals. It seems that it may be possible that Henry had a condition related to his, shall we say, manhood? This might be astonishing and even shocking, but it could be that Henry had a mild penile deformity that had caused their childlessness. Called hypospadias with Cordy. It's a physical malformation that makes it difficult for a man to impregnate a woman because, of all things, the opening is not where it is supposed to be. The abnormal opening can form anywhere from just below where it is supposed to be to other locations. There are different degrees of hypospadias. Some can be minor and others more severe. Surprisingly, researchers today estimate that about 1 in every 200 babies is born with this abnormality in the United States, making it one of the most common birth defects. So if Henry was born with this birth defect, then some historical accounts suggesting that the good Dr. Fennel's solution was to find a coital position to assist with the problem seems plausible. Others allude to the fact that Diane also had input to the situation, since she had intimate knowledge of Henry's anatomy and she, too, had some ideas on how to take certain positions to remedy the situation. Whatever the good doctor or Diane had to suggest, Catherine was finally able to conceive, and she delivered her first child, Francis, named after Grandpapa, of course, who would become King Francis II of France. Now that they had the method down, Catherine quickly conceived again, and on April 2, 1545, she bore a daughter, Elizabeth, who would become a Queen of Spain as the third spouse of Philip II of Spain. She went on to bear Henry a further 8 children, 6 of whom survived infancy, including the future Charles IX of France, born June 27, 1550, the future Henry III, born September 19, 1551, and Francis, Duke of Anjou, born March 18, 1551, and finally Claude of France, born November 12, 1547. By the time she was done with childbearing, Catherine de' Medici was ready to take on the position of Queen Regent, which she would hold till her death. Thanks to the 3 future kings of France, she was able to conceive in spite of Henry's shocking condition. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out my other videos on Catherine de' Medici, the Serpent Queen.